Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Life from the Wrist. Hope you guys are doing well today. We're continuing our Geneva Watch Day coverage. What we're going to be talking about today is Breitling. They had some very interesting releases, sort of in line with some of the watches that they've released this year back in, I think, April. But boy, are these going to probably be some of the most controversial watches that I've seen so far come out of Geneva Watch Days. Breitling released 3 new top time chronographs that are inspired by vintage cars. It's pretty obvious which cars each of these watches are inspired by, and I think maybe some of the dial decisions that were made are where the controversy for these watches are really going to be. So I'm going to give you some information about these watches, talk through them. I'll put up pictures and videos of all of them so you can see them while I'm talking through them. I'll say at the beginning of the video I don't have these watches. This is just an informative video for you. So if you don't know, the Breitling Top Time is a chronograph that Breitling produced. It's now considered a vintage chronograph and isn't one of their mainline production watches. The last time a Top Time was released was actually a limited edition from the limited edition that was inspired by the 1960s Breitling Top Times. So it was a fairly limited run of watches, and still sort of trying to keep the Top Time sort of as special and harken back to the great watches that Breitling did create back then. The 3 watches that they've released for Geneva Watch Days are also 1960s inspired chronographs in the Top Time sort of design elements. However, these ones have a really great splash of color on each of them. So, like I said, these are inspired by specific cars of the 1960s. These are some of the most well-known ones. The 3 cars are an early 1960s Shelby Cobra, a second generation Corvette, and then a first generation Ford Mustang from the 1960s. So when you look at these watches, you're going to see the elements of these cars really come out. So just to describe the watches really quickly, the first one I'm looking at is going to be the Corvette inspired watch, Top Time, and this watch has a really bright red dial with 3 black sub-dials. And then it has, these sub-dials are almost sort of squared off in a way, and then black sub-dials with white numerals. I think one of the other things that really stands out is you actually have the Corvette symbol below the name of Breitling, which is applied to the dial, and then just below where the hands intersect into or are attached to the middle of the dial is written Top Time, right above the 6 o'clock sub-dial. So that's the first one, obvious choice. You've got the Breitling name and then the Corvette symbol right below it. The second watch is continuing the 2021 theme of green dials, and that is the Mustang inspired watch. So you have, very similar to the Corvette inspired watch, you have you have a chronograph, 3 sub-dials, Top Time written above the 6 o'clock sub-dial, and you have Breitling written towards 12 o'clock, and right below that is the Mustang logo. The last one is another splash of color. You have a blue dial, and this is the Cobra inspired watch, and this has 2 sub-dials instead of 3. And these sub-dials are actually quite large, one at 9 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock, the Cobra symbol at 6 o'clock, and then you have Breitling Top Time written towards 12 o'clock. So a couple things quite noticeable about these watches are the bright colors and the use of the logos for the cars that inspired these pieces. Stainless steel case, 40 millimeters. I believe the Shelby Cobra is 40 millimeters. Let me just make sure I get these dimensions right. Excuse me. So yeah, the Shelby Cobra is 40 millimeters. The Corvette and Mustang inspired watches are 42 millimeters. Each of the watches have Breitling in-house movements. The Corvette and the Mustang has the caliber 25 from Breitling, and the Cobra has the caliber 41. This is, so what you're getting is an 1/8 of a second chronograph, 30-second counter, 15-minute counter, and 6-hour counter on the caliber 25, and then a 1/4 of a second chronograph, 30-minute counter, or 30 minutes, hours, minutes, and seconds for the caliber 41. 42 hours of power reserve. These are great movements from Breitling. You can't fault them for the mechanics of these watches at all. So Stainless steel case, really beautiful watch from a design perspective. I love the Breitling Top Time. For me, it's arguably one of Breitling's best watches that they've come out with in the history of the brand. But I think where the controversy comes here is when we start looking at the choice of colors and the choice of inspiration, how you bring that inspiration out. I think it's been sort of a trend with brands when they have something that's inspiring the design of one of their watches to really make it obvious that that was it. A great example is the Black Panther Automat Piguet that was released, where you actually had Black Panther right on the dial, and there's a lot of controversy around that. It's very interesting that Breitling went from creating a limited edition Top Time previously to sort of keeping the Top Time name and brand very sort of in line with their heritage, and then going, in my opinion, to the opposite end of the spectrum and creating a watch like these where you have these bright colors and not super in line with the original design of the Breitling Top Time. And even doing it with being inspired by these cars and putting the logos of these cars on dials. I think that's probably going to be where people are going to say that the Breitling maybe missed, is putting these logos on the dials of the watch and kind of making it too gimmicky. I think the Top Time was such an incredible watch. Yes, it was a driver's watch, but I think people who like the Top Time are into vintage watches, into the true design of these pieces, and so this sort of steers away from it. I think Breitling has played around with the colors of the watches that they've released. Back in April, we had that really beautiful pistachio green dial that they came out with. Played around with dial colors a lot. I think this is continuing maybe that theme that they've come with. And to be honest, I don't mind when brands decide to put a little bit of a spin on the color that they use for the pieces that they have. Totally fine by me. But I think maybe someone may criticize Breitling here and say, you know, why did you have to put the logos of these cars on there? I think it would have been equally as cool if you actually just put it on the case back. You had a really cool sort of Corvette-inspired case back, where or Corvette, the Corvette, the Mustang, or the Shelby Cobra sort of logos on the back of the watch, kind of like the Rega Oris that we talked about, where they put the aircrafts on the case back. I think that would have been a really cool way of doing showing where the inspiration for these watches came from. There's also some splash of color around the outside of the chronograph, which I think is fairly cool. So this can go either way. I think if you are a vintage car enthusiast and you have an interest in watches, this might be the right place to go for you. You might really like a specific one of these cars, and so, or you own one of them, so you could wear it while you're driving it. What's really cool is these are not limited editions, so these are going to be in regular production. But I can see where people might, you know, not really go for these because of the decisions that were made for the dial of this watch. But yeah, this is not a limited edition. Cool that they're using the Breitling Top Time design. Definitely blew it up to 40 and 42 millimeters, which I think is a sweet spot for most modern watch wearers. I'm cool with 36 or 38, but really cool watch, cool inspiration. Nicely done, Breitling. It would have been cool to see some of the iterations that you came out with, to say, okay, how do we want to bring this theme forward in these watches? But some cool watches. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about these watches. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I could go either way on these. I'm not really into vintage cars, so I probably wouldn't end up buying them, but let me know what you think about these watches. If you haven't caught some of our other Geneva Watch Day coverage, be sure to check out our playlist on our channel, or you can check out some of our recent videos where we've covered other brands like Oris and the like. If you want to read more about Geneva Watch Days, head over to our website, livefromthewrist.com. And you can go to the editorial section of our website. Every video that we publish on YouTube, we have a corresponding article, so you can check that out. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you like these types of videos, and if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button for us, it really does help us out with our YouTube analytics. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.